I'm Elizabeth Larkam with Balanced Body Pilates. This is one of the movement sequences that I made up for my clients who are triathletes. You know, Marin County is just a bastion of triathlete practice. And so many of the triathletes have a very dominant leg in their cycling, a dominant running leg. So I created this exercise to ensure that each side of the hip flexors and of the hip extensors would have an opportunity to move symmetrically. Here's the plan. First, get started without any springs at all. Arrange yourself in a neutral pelvis, neutral spine, with your knees about hip joint width apart. Now, keeping the pelvis, the sacrum, level and steady, one thigh moves into hip flexion, the other into hip extension. And do this keeping the torso, the rib cage, quite steady. This is with no springs at all. Now keep that rhythm going and come to vertical. If the floor is level and your client is pulling approximately equally through both hip joints, then they'll be able to stand their ground, stay in one location as the legs go forward and back. Next, put on the lightest spring that you have. I suggest putting a yellow spring on the lowest neck, on the lowest part. Start with the lightest spring because just a little bit of resistance goes a long way. One thigh against the shoulder rest, the other foot close to the opposite shoulder rest. And same rules apply, keeping the pelvis level and steady, the sacrum at the same axis as the thoracolumbar junction. Keep this rhythm going, or resume it when you come to vertical. Ideally, the ASIS stay equally forward during hip extension and hip flexion. After you practice the exercises in kneeling with no springs, and then in kneeling with the lightest spring with the yellow spring, then you can take your clients to standing. In this exercise, this thigh bone, this femur, is resisted going into hip extension, and this one is assisted going into hip extension. Have the pads of your fingers at the corners of your pubic bone and your thumbs at your navel, so you can feel that this area stays steady as your legs move symmetrically forward and back. Make sure to keep your sternum directly on top of your pubic bone. There might be a tendency to lean back, that would be an error, or to pitch forward. Keep balanced on your central axis, on your neutral axis. Probably exhale to slide back, inhale to slide forward, exhaling on the resisted hip extension, and then you can change up the breathing. Inhale to go back with hip extension, exhale forward, inhaling back, exhaling forward. Now, given that this spring is pulling the leg into hip flexion and this spring pulling this femur into hip extension, there are unequal forces on the legs here. If you're going to balance your sides, and since that's desirable, you need to have either 3 reformers. Don't you think that's a bit excessive? Really? 3 for one exercise? Or it's time to move this reformer to the other side. I'll leave that to you. Let us know how your results go with your clients and be in touch. Thank you. Bye-bye.